like go to move to our next speaker. You know that in my country, even the last year in fintech education or fintech, we have got the first unicorn in our country, and the most of the board of directors are the male. But what about the women in fintech? So to discuss this issue, we have our speaker, Dr. Malgorzata Sulimierska. So she is the senior lecturer in banking and fintech, University of Sussex, United Kingdom. She has also the Oxford FinTech and Blockchain qualification from University of Oxford and a PhD in Financial Economics from the University of Sussex. She has involved herself in various research and teaching. And for her amazing teaching quality, she has achieved various awards from the institutions. So to discuss this issue, I would like to welcome Dr. Malgorzata Sulimierska. So you can start your presentation.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to say thank you for inviting me here and actually be able to address this topic. First, I would check if you can hear me properly, if there's no any disruption on the line, because that would be a small problem. So I will share my presentation now. Can you see the presentation? Every slide is visible. I will do a small check if everything moved correctly. For me, it is a very interesting topic. As you might aware, fintech by itself is a very new industry that actually existing. It's more like, if you think more than less 10 years of existence, and it's one of the most rapid industry that actually is created. So, of course, if we think about new industry, we think about new potentials for women actually be a part of that industry, actually became a leaders of creation of new opportunities. So a little bit about, I don't know how much you know about fintech industry. So fintech industry, we're talking about the finance companies which are only provided the services through online application or any type of the apps or mobile apps. So technology, the products are very much based, it's mainly a finance product, which is very much based on technology. So it's a huge implementation of cloud computing for blockchain, existing artificial intelligence, machine learning, and etc. IPI, I could go on and on. So what we can see is the industry which significantly kind of pushing away the traditional industry. We're talking about that they managed to cause some kind of a additional disturbance for around $20 trillion for the traditional industry. And when we think about that industry, it's not only that it's driven by technology development, but as well is driven by the customer's needs. So as you can see on the left-hand side of the slide, is mainly the analysis done by investment banks, which is mainly the Bank of America and Goldman Sachs, looking about how the customers, which is mainly the millennials, are actually changing the way how this industry is operating. So what we can easily see is this kind of broad industry, starting from lending, online lending, going through different type of the blockchain implementation, cryptocurrency, payment that can be done for your build, insurance companies, which we call insurance reg, capital market implementation, wealth reg, which is the wealth management, any type of money transfer, which is the payment reg, and of course the last one, which is a prop tech and sport tech. So it's a lot of area of the finance that has been actually disrupted by this industry. So in this case, we wanted to know how this industry is disturbing, and it is equally disturbing globally, or it is different across to developing and less developing countries. And this is mainly what I put it here, which is mainly basing on the report by the Ernst Young, is mainly looking at that actually over many of these services that fintech is offering. The one of the countries which are very much affected is actually the developing countries. So the leaders are very often China, Brazil, India, and actually the Western world is as well there following the path, but maybe not in so dynamic way compare how, for instance, the the developing economies are doing. We can, of course, argue why it is happening, but it's not a part of this talk today. And another thing we can see about this main slide is presenting how much it is adopted by using type of the fintech, and as well how much is going to be adopted. So everything that is you kind of with the line here, which is showing us how much is going to be adopted in the context of the developed countries and developing emerging market. So you can see it's that this is mainly only 3 areas. I could go more and more, but you can see that these increases are really significant. This is mainly how the banks are actually seeing the situation about how much of the competition is growing for them, or how much they will have to collaborate with actually this industry. If we look in the updatation index as well of the fintech, we can see again we have a quite significant players like in US, Australia, Singapore, US, UK, but as well India is, for instance, the leading one that we have. So, and as well, another part which I pointed out is not only as well technology which is driven that, but as well the people needs. We can see there is a huge generation gap between how the customers behave, let's say 20 years ago, and how much they behave now. And especially with the group which is especially young, between 24 to 40, they are one of the biggest users of this technology. This is mainly comparing this fintech, NSS Fintech Adaptation Index between 2017 to 2019. And you can easily see that the group, which is 25-34, used to use that on the level of 50, but now actually it's moved to the level of 80, which is mean that it has increased almost double how much of young people using this type of the services. So the question we could ask ourselves, okay, we have this dynamic industry, okay, so what is the position of the woman in that industry? And we can think about that, okay, how many of the senior positions are actually run by females? How much of the females actually earning in this industry compared to the male? And as well, how much of the female is actually using these products regarding the fintech industry. So if we're looking at that, we know there is quite a lot of theoretical discussion pointing out that fintech, promise to improve financial inclusion, reducing financial inclusion, reducing the gender gaps associated with the financial sector. So that is mainly where kind of frame is coming. We're expecting that technology make it easier, it is more flexible to use, especially when we have the females who normally taking care of more responsibility regarding to the household. That will allow them to be more involved in the industry, which allow them to have more flexibility, working from home, for instance. And we can find what I could say a lot of very positive cases regarding to it. So one of the very positive cases that you can see is, and I pointed out, is actually in 2014, one of the biggest bids to obtain for setting up the fintech company, which was like 100 million for Europe, was actually a feed leading person, which was the Samantha Sampen. We can find that it's around 30 different fintech CEOs, and I would like to talk about a few of them. So we have them in really leading companies, for instance, like Sterling Bank, which is the leading virtual bank that exists in Europe, especially in UK. Anna Borden is actually leading that. She started this position in 2014. She has a big team, building very strong oriented team of the customer orientation application for human how to use it, and actually pointed out that doing virtual banking is a future. We have as well another person, which is the Camila Gillis, which is chief officer for the Calma, which is one of the biggest online platform, lending platform that exists in Europe as well. One of the biggest platform which doing the e-commerce as well in Europe. We can look as well about the chairwoman of the Open Bank, which is actually allowing, as you know, maybe, I don't know, many of you maybe know, is the open banking as a future for banks, mainly opening their platform for the third parties, and majority of them are fintech companies. So Charlotte Crossell is actually leading that project. since the beginning it started. And of course, I think the one of the most known person in the fintech world for the female CEOs is actually Susanna Kishul, which is the CEO of the Fintech Circle. Fintech Circle is a platform which allowed him to connect all the financial industry with the fintech companies. She obtained several different awards about how she's networked. Is actually one of the first person who actually published the bestseller book about the fintech. So it was translated in several languages. So we have these examples actually pointed out that there are people, there are females, there are women which are very successful in the industry. But let's look at how it happens to the numbers. And when we come into the numbers, first of all, it's not so much study done. So the evidence on whether fintech helps to close the gender gap is not so much because, as I said, it's a very new industry that is booming. And as well, there's not so much study done in this area as well. So the one of the, I would say, very interesting study which I came across is actually done by the Bank for International Settlements. They produced in 2001 paper where they're analyzing what is the fintech gap by using Ernst Young Global Fintech Adaptation Index, which I was actually showing you, which was actually normally looking and analyzing how people are willing to use the fintech products and how many of them are. So what we are doing at Sussex, we wanted to and analyzing that with the respect to the database, which is mainly provided by government, which is the government on the gender pay gap, which was actually published since 2019. So what I wanted to point it out, actually the situation for the fintech industry look a little bit like this panel. You can ask me, what is this panel? Okay, this is the panel of the Fintech Summit in 2017. This is the main players for the online banking, not only for the virtual banking. So you have the founder of Monzo, N26, and Revolut. This is actually this very sad story, we could say it, that actually in the fintech, we have very male-dominated sectors. If normal for the finance sector, if we're looking at the data for 2001, it's mainly we can see it that it's kind of very similar how they went together. And as well, this is transferring as well to the gender pay gap. We can see it that for the gross hourly wage, women earn 30% less compared to the males. Even looking at as I pointed out, the Sterling Bank, which I'm a very big, I wouldn't say fan, but the CEO is a female. Even for that bank, women paid less. They get 51p compared to the man who is getting £1. If we compare the wages, almost 50%. The similar situation is as well for Monzo. So we can see this problem exists, and what may be worth to actually. So we have that situation. So what we were trying to look at is here is actually finding the reasons why this is happening. Because we know that this is a huge market for female to step in. It's a new market. It's not very well. It's allowing to create something from nothing. Which we actually, if we look at the people who are sitting in the panel, we can see they create banks from kind of nothing. This is the app, the bank existing on the app. So it is possible. So what we wanted to look at and what we're analyzing, we're looking at different factors. So we divide them into 4 groups. So one of the factors we are looking is something what is fintech technology. Then we are looking at the fintech technology pricing. Then we're looking at the fintech technology products and the fintech technology enters or incubators. So what I mean by looking at the fintech technology products, we're looking how people are, in the context about their gender, are more likely to adopt new financial technology in general. So wanted to know what is the difference, if it is the case that, for instance, that female are not working for the fintech companies, and not becoming a leader of that is because they are not likely to adopt to new fintech, new technology. So that is one aspect. Another aspect is pricing. So we are looking at if the customers who are using the fintech products in the context of our agenda, are they more likely to choose a cheaper offer? Who is choosing a cheaper offer? Who is better to finding a cheaper offer? Is it a female or it is a male? You know, how it has, because that can be as well effect of that. If they are able to do it, they can benefit, they can get interested, they can get into that industry. And another thing is mainly to finding a right product. So do they able to find the right product for themselves to actually enter? The last one I pointed out is the entrance. We wanted to know how likely female or male, who is more likely to set up the business and what could be the reason why they are going to it. So we are kind of on the initial stage of doing this research very much. We have already, as I said, we're using the government data, but as well, we are doing a survey among different fintech industry to obtain the data, and as well trying to very work closely with the Ernst Young as well to look at their adaptation index to be able to do the comparison. So far, what we can find, which is maybe not very optimistic, but in all these aspects, all these factors, we can see that females are less resistant, like more resistant to actually use the financial product technology to find, I wouldn't say that actually with the pricing is actually shocking. They are quite good at it. But in the context about adaptation technology and actually starting up the business, which is the first and last factors, we can see a huge differences that are actually happening. So I think if we look, okay, so we can ask ourselves, okay, what could be a solution? So one of the people who I had a pleasure to work at ActiChat is Angela Peacock. She's one of the CEOs companies, which is the, CEOs of one of the fintech companies, global one. And she pointed out a several solutions to it. One of the solutions that she pointed out is to bring this bias. So she pointed out there's a certain bias, which is hidden bias regarding about the recruitment for the fintech companies, which can be as well related. This recruitment can be as well related to, who is acting in the power, but as well the
Doctor, you are unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry about that. I think I pressed something by accident. Hence my moving sometimes. So that is one thing. She's kind of making sure that this bias, which is often hidden behind a certain point, it has to be in the context of applying for jobs, participating in the interviews. So kind of encouraging actually the girls to actually go for this path of the career, saying, okay, it is heavy technology, but it doesn't mean that you cannot do it. It's like maybe you are not comfortable, but you can, this way, that was the one way. Another one, which is very important, which is actually what we are doing here, is actually shout about these differences, shout and point it out. There is a gender bias, and which are the companies which actually having this gender bias and what they are going to do it. And another thing is finding the way to kind of break it. So finding the way how we can define inclusion and diversification that can be provided. Of course, each of us is very different and each of us want to work for different possibility, but maybe in this case, actually provide the education in that path that we can, we can make it that the girls will be equipped with certain skills that they need the industry. So for instance, in Sussex, we're having something what is called women in the fintech or women in the finance society, which actually encouraging the girls to actually join. That is the reason I was the one of the first. We created one of the first degree in the fintech, actually globally, and that's definitely in the UK, which actually making sure. So I'm very happy to see the girls actually joining, being a part of it, actually having a discussion, saying, okay, this is the skills we learned, that is how we operate, and we can see that is possible to do. So I think the solutions are there. I think it's the way how we embrace them. So I would like to say thank you. If there are any type of the questions, I'm more than welcome to answer.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Definitely, we'll have some questions at the end of our uh, next speaker. So thank you so much, Doctor.
So please remember, if we all help and do a little bit, it will make a big difference.